BookTok, a place where books seem to rise and fall in fame within a mere matter of days of publishing. I can't say that I have never been a bandwagoner. I am but a girl. Sometimes I simply read things because people tell me to, sometimes I don't, because people's opinions tend to sway me. I'm trying to do better at that, which is bringing us to this video. Currently, right now, there are two books really circulating on BookTok for good and also not so good reasons. Those two books, if you haven't seen them yet, I'm surprised. Silver Elite by Danny Francis, and one I don't have the physical copy of, Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Both of these books are highly viewed on BookTok right now for a very different reason. I, like a lot of people, saw Silver Elite and had our interest piqued. This was quite literally my book of the month pick, not knowing anything about the book. This book has been victim to the bad side of BookTok, where people have bandwagoned on it not being a great book. I have not read it yet. Do I agree with their judgment? Not yet. Whereas the opposite side, Shield of Sparrows, has become beloved almost overnight. Again, I haven't read it, so do I agree? I can't say yet. Which is why I'm going to put them to the test. I am going to read two of BookTok's most popular books at the moment and give you my opinion. Are they worth it? Are they not? Which one is better? Which one is worth? Are they both mediocre? We'll find out. I'm going to start with Silver Elite, which, if I read the book jacket to you, in the first book of a sizzling dystopian romance series, psychic gifts are a death sentence, and 3 rules are to survival. Trust no one, lie to everyone, and whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. Trust no one. Ren Darlington has spent her whole life in hiding, honing her psychic abilities and aiding to the rebel uprising in small ways. On the continent, being modified means certain death, and Ren is one of the most powerful mods in existence. When one careless mistake places her in the hands of the enemy, she's forced to join Silverblock, their most elite training program. She's finally handed to the perfect opportunity to strike a devastating blow to their ranks. Lie to everyone. But training in Silverblock can be deadly, especially when you're harboring dangerous secrets and living in close quarters with everyone who wants you dead. And whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. As stakes grow even higher, Ren must prove herself. But that's easier said than done when your commanding officer is the ruthless and infuriatingly irresistible Cross Redden, who doesn't miss anything when it comes to her. And as war rages between mods like her and those who aim to destroy them, Ren must decide how far she's willing to go to protect herself, and how much of the continent is worth saving. So, that is the book jacket intro to this book. The general consensus on BookTok is that it's not great writing and it's also misrepresented. This is marketed as dystopian, and I've seen a lot of discourse on whether or not this could actually be considered dystopian. I'm going into it a little apprehensive, but I am going into it with an open mind. So, I'm going to read this. I want to preface that this will not be the most spoiler-free. There are going to be things at the end of the video comparing the two that I want to talk about that might have spoilers, but I'm going to try to keep them as minimal as possible. So if you haven't read these books and you still want to form your own opinion, I haven't just splayed everything out for you. In effort to compare them, I do need to talk about things that actually happen. I'm going to read Silver Elite. I don't update you while reading. I am going to take notes and I will be back to you when they're finished. And then we will go on to Shield of Sparrows and at the end do a collective comparison of the two books and give you my opinion of which one is worth it, which one's overhyped, which one's not. Are they both overhyped? I don't know. Apprehensively, we're going to start Silver Elite, and I will see you when we're done. Me. It has been about a day and a half reading Silver Elite. I have been going back and forth between physical and audiobook for this, and this is my halfway through check-in, and I have notes. Let's see, at this moment I am on chapter 25. I'm on page 236, so pretty much halfway. I think there's 56 chapters in this book, so just about halfway. I have notes, okay? I have notes. My initial reaction to this book sounds like Powerless, which Powerless also then sounds like Red Queen, all of the other kind of big book talk books that book was heavily inspired by. So immediately I was like, this feels like every other book, romantasy book, that has been written. Within the first 2 chapters, I was already cringing at characters. Currently, I'm not a big fan of the MMC Cross. He's like not at the top of my list of book boyfriends. I literally wrote, this feels like a bad Tessa Bailey book. Tessa Bailey was a romance author that I liked for a little bit and then hardcore dropped off of because books went from like cute romance to like heavy on smut and it like wasn't well written. There was a Tessa Bailey book that I DNF'd like within the first couple chapters because the intro of the guy character was just talking about how he was fantasizing having sex with this character and jorking it to her, and it just felt yucky, and that's how this book is already feeling to me. I didn't start out great loving it. I wrote in all caps, can we not think of another color other than silver? Why is every blood that's different silver? That's very common. I think it's Red Queen, Powerless, both at least. The print people, their blood is silver. Why is all of the blood that's different silver? Don't know. I would like someone to pick a different color. I've called, this is my early prediction halfway through the book, and I called this in chapter 2. I said chapter 2, I'm already calling it, the wolf guy is our main MMC. There's no way that this like alter ego guy is prevalent in this book without it being the main male character. And if there's one thing about a book, I don't like a book that I can predict within the first 2 chapters. So if I'm right about this, I think I'm going to be more angry than if I'm incorrect about it. I then wrote, that was the most unconcerned reaction to someone being kidnapped. She's more concerned about her horse than her father figure. The scene where her uncle is like taken in by the government, she was just like, whoa, I gotta go. And then she was like, what if they hurt my horse? And was like, rightfully so, love animals. I do love horses. I felt like she was way more concerned about this horse than her actual father figure. She's very, I'm not like other girls. There's a little quote where she said, why is being bad at something so hard? I'm so good at everything. Why is it so hard to not be good at everything? I think it was, in chapter 11, being bad at something is hard. She's insufferable. The female main character, I think this author is trying too hard to make her a badass, and it's coming across as annoying and like condescending. I wrote chapter 8 specifically, it's divergent now. It's literally divergent. Also, can they have one interaction that's not sexual? Chapter 14, this scene specifically is Cringe City. Chapter 15, I got the ick from Kane in the gun scene where it's like, you know the movie Ghost where Patrick Swayze is a ghost and he's like trying to do art, that scene? They basically did that but with a gun. That felt super cringe to me. I wrote, for this being dystopian, girly really wants the D. Chapter 16 I wrote, bro, I get it, you think he's hot, because any internal dialogue she has about him is just, God, he's so hot. And it's like, can we have any other conversation other than that? They're describing her outfit for the pit, which again, it's divergent. Their meeting social center is called the Pit. What is it called in this book? The Pit. What is she in? Dauntless. It's divergent. I wrote, this is divergent. You couldn't think of any word other than pit. She's describing the outfit she wears to the pit, and I wrote specifically chapter 20, the outfit is giving Wattpad. So, halfway through, don't feel any legitimate chemistry between these 2 characters. Everything feels very surface level and fake. There is absolutely nothing about these 2 that make me feel like they genuinely like each other and it's anything beyond sex. This author might have stolen the plot for Divergent, but 4 interests are elite, and I stand by that. I also wrote, why are we kissing Kane? I hate this. This whole, like, do I like Kane? Do I like trying to make it a love triangle? Not hitting for me. Like, Kane is not the lead man, but I feel more invested in his relationship with her than I do the main couple. Because, like, is Kane also cringy and sexual? Yes, but you can tell that this author is trying to do it in, like, a comedic relief way. The 2 main characters, it's not a comedic relief thing, that's their relationship. I'm halfway through, chapter 25. Right now, it is not my favorite book. Right now, I am siding with the majority of TikTok that this is not a great book. A big thing that I've been seeing about this is whether or not this should actually be labeled as dystopian, and I have thoughts on that, but I want to save it till the end when I've actually finished everything. But this is my waypoint check-in, and it's not my favorite. I think if I wasn't recording this video, I probably would DNF this. It's just personally not my bag right now, and I'm sad because it does have very pretty sprayed edges. I understand how people felt about Powerless just trope grabbing from a million other books. That's how this feels. This is Divergent written by a Gen Z person, not as well. Feels like it could have been written by AI so far. So, I have a whole other half of this book to read. So long for so little happening. Not super impressed with it at the moment. I will check in with you guys again when this book is done to give you my overall thoughts and feelings. I'm very interested once I finish this, see how I actually feel about it, how that's going to lead into my feelings of Shield of Sparrows. I will see you guys probably in another day or so when I have this finished to give you my final thoughts. Hello. It is 2 days later, I think. I have finished this book, and I'm glad that I don't have to read it anymore. I'm gonna go through my thoughts and feelings notes for the rest of the chapters before I give you my overall spiel. Last time we checked in, I was on chapter 25. I was about halfway through. So my notes start back off at chapter 29 specifically, where I wrote top 10 worst first kiss scenes of all time, and I stand by that. The first kiss scene between our two main characters. This whole book now is reading Wattpad. So, of course, the first kiss scene gives Wattpad. They are just like macking on it at an alleyway after having like zero build-up for it. Their relationship still feels extremely surface level. Chapter 31, I wrote, "Can we stop saying whore?" That book, I feel like the word whore was said too many times. I just was not a fan of how many times they used that word as a descriptor. Chapter 34, I specifically wrote, "Why do we keep bringing up the black lands with like no explanation of what they are?" And then I said for dystopian, there's like no detail of the world, which I, now finishing it, still stand by. The black lands is mentioned a lot for Ren's character and like her development and her growing up there. It touches on it a little bit more at the end of the book for sure. Blacklands specifically, but along with everything else in the book, there's really no detail to the world. It's just kind of like mentioned that there's like Divergent, there's different factions, and Hunger Games, there's different districts. It's kind of just like mentioned that that's the basic setup of this new country, post-dystopia world, but there's no like actual description of it. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, the Blacklands are a thing, I live on this outskirt town, there's like the peacekeeper people. That's kind of all it is, and you're just kind of not given any more detail beyond that, which will tie into my overall end opinion. But I just wrote, in general, there's not really a lot of detail of their dystopian world. Chapter 36, I wrote, that was genuinely the most anticlimactic death ever. I feel like as a reader, I have zero connection with any other side character than Cain, which I still stand behind. There was a lot of death in this book, and I didn't really care about any of it. There was none that I was like, oh my god, I loved that character. I have no emotional connection to any people in this story, even up to the end. 37, in all caps, I wrote, no emotional connection between them. They are genuinely the most top of surface, just find you hot couple I've ever read. Chapter 40, I wrote, what's up with these bitches not locking their bikes? Why is everything a motorcycle? There's like 2, if not 3 different times where our main character steals a government vehicle and just goes on, every time she's like, the padlock isn't locked. Why mention that there's like a finger padlock if they're never going to be engaged? If you're gonna mention that like things are locked up, make a scene where she has to like lockpick or like kill somebody or knock them out to use their thumb to open the scanner. Like, I feel like you could have done something with that more than just being like, things are locked, but they're just never locked whenever she's around. I just felt like, sure, maybe once she gets lucky and doesn't have to like fight for it, but everything else feels just handed to her. Like, she doesn't actually have to fight for anything. Everything just coincidentally goes her way, and that started pissing me off. I wrote, am I a bad person for not feeling bad that Tana got sent to a camp? Low-key, she wasn't that great of a friend. I don't think Tana was a great friend. I really feel like didn't try to help Ren at all, where I feel like if the roles were reversed, Ren would have been trying a lot harder than Tana was. I don't think she was that great of a friend. Interrupt the rant for Dunkin' avocado toast delivery. Post-Dunkin' rant continuation. I felt like a bad person for not caring that Tana got sent to workers' camp, because in my mind, I called them salt mines like they do in Throne of Glass. So in my mind, they were like Throne of Glass level bad, where they would like just like worked till they die. That's how I feel like most places describe like the bad labor camps. Then was completely like awestruck when in this book, Ren like checks into the camp that her friend is sent to, and she's like describing them as like nice. She's like, they get like days off and like 3 square meters a day, and they have like actual bedrooms. They have their vacation days so they can go see their family. I was like, is it like, aren't we supposed to be making the government look bad? Like, I thought the point of like the labor camps and stuff were for them to be like bad. Like, you're not supposed to want to go there. Like, would I want to go there? No. But I would feel less weird about it if I knew I wasn't going to, like, get abused. It feels very weird to, like, all book hype up labor camps as, like, big, bad, scary. And then as soon as someone gets sent to them, the author's like, actually, they're not too bad. They get days off. They get their chalky milk. For it being a dystopian book where you're not supposed to like the government figurehead, it feels weird to write something and then gives the government a sense of like not looking as much like the bad guy as you were expecting them to. I was expecting her to be like, oh, my friend is like being killed.
I heard voice.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We don't like this book, do we?
No, I would put belt to ass on this book.
But it felt very weird.
Poor Danny. I'm sorry.
What?
Poor Danny.
Poor Dane. Oh, poor Danny. I was like, who's Dane? It felt very weird to then, like, not describe them as bad. I would expect them, if you're trying to hate the government, for them to be awful and bad, not be like, they get 3 square meals a day and days off and nice beds. I felt weird about that. Then in the same chapter of her talking about how concerned she is about her friend, you're gonna live react to this too. The author's like starting a makeout scene between like the 2 main characters that are supposedly in love with each other, right? Guess what this man says out loud to her as she's trying to like write smut. She writes the male character, the girl's like, where have you been? I haven't seen you. I'm not kidding. She writes the male character to say, I've been a bad boy. This is Wattpad. I'm serious. She's like, I've been a bad boy. And they proceed to aggressively suck face. He just goes, I've been a bad boy. And I'm like, what the actual hell am I reading? I have in all capitals, I've been a bad boy. What the hell is this? The cringe I'm experiencing is unbearable.
That made her candy shop.
Apparently. So that happened. I am not one to yuck on people's yum, especially when it comes to book, but this is the most, like, outwardly I've not liked a book in a long time. Continuing, I wrote specifically chapter 45. Exactly what I predicted would happen in chapter 2 happened. So I guessed one of the big plot twists in literal chapter 2. We talked about that at our halfway point where I was predicting that the main male character was also this wolf guy. They were the same people. I predicted that in chapter 2, but I was right. I don't know which I'm more mad about. I think I would have rather have been a different person. That would at least be like something different. But I predicted this book 2 chapters in. Don't love that. Chapter 51, I wrote, why are so many people finding out her identity at one time? We go this whole book of her trying to conceal the fact that she's part of like the Rebel Alliance and like she's part of the modified group of people. And then in chapter 51, literally every single person finds out. She goes from like actually killing people to just like being like, guess what, I'm a mod now. It felt very 0 to 100 of people finding out, but in the whole book not trying to, like, I get that she has like the thing that conceals her identity removed, so that like makes it hard, but it's also like it was written where it wasn't a noticeable difference, so why are people now seeing this very not supposed to be noticeable? It just felt very weird. I didn't love that how her, you know, identity came to be for everybody. The last couple chapters of the book where they are parting ways, that's like leading up to the possible second book. Light spoiler alert, they have to go their separate ways. She has to go back with the, what are they called? The rebels, and main guy, because he's like prince part of the government, like stays with the government side. So they part ways and they're like, we can love each other from a distance. We can do long distance. They're having like, hi Addie, probably like what reads maybe 20-minute like equivalent of no you hang up, going back and forth of like, I can't come with you but I want to, but you know I can't but I want to. It was like 20 minutes of that, to which my reaction to that was, girls Delulu forever thinking he was coming. When did they ever agree they were on the same side? Hold for motorcycle.
Harley Davidson himself.
Yeah, I know. Harleston Davidson in the flesh.
Harold.
At no point in the book did they ever agree that they were aligned on things politically. Never once did she say, I'm leaving the rebellion, you're right, the government's not bad. Nor did he say, you're right, I'm joining the rebellion and defying my family and the government. Never once did they come to an agreement on where they stand politically in this dystopian world. All they agreed was that they both think that they're hot, sexy, and fun, and they like to smooch a little bit, and I guess that they're dating. As soon as, like, politics come back into it, they're like, let's just be long distance and pretend that we're not on opposite sides. Like, nowhere in the book did they agree that they were, like, on the same sides, being, like, double agents. They're just leaving. I guess they're both okay with the other person working for the side of the government they don't like. I felt like that was super weird. So, that is my chapter by chapter notes breakdown. Overall, we've gotten to my overall thoughts and feelings sections. Has it been 20 minutes? Probably. Overall thoughts and feelings. This book is a solid 2.5 star for me. Did it have its moments that were entertaining? Yeah. Was it written well? In my opinion, no. This whole book felt like Wattpad. This felt like it was written by a 17-year-old that got her first book deal. And, like, no shame in that. From what we know of this book, Danny Francis is a pen name. This book was written by an already established author. There's a whole thing on TikTok of people trying to figure out who it is, but we all know that this is a person that already has multiple bestseller books being published. I think it's just someone that wanted to try a different genre and had a feeling it wouldn't work well, so they wrote a pen name. So this is not some 17-year-old that got their first book deal. This is an already established author. Figured that out when the book was released. So for it to read the way it does, those things don't match up to me. A best-selling author that has multiple books published to what feels like Wattpad feels very disconnected and weird to me. Is the book bad? It had its moments of, like, where I was, like, vaguely interested. If I wasn't reading it for this video, would I have DNF'd it? Yeah. But it wasn't like, I've read books where I want to gouge my eyes out. Did this make me cringe out of my skin? Yes. It was, like, standable enough to, like, kind of keep reading it. I listened to most of it on audiobook because I couldn't bring myself to hold the book in my hand and turn the pages because my brain was fighting against it at every waking second. But the big question that has been on the mind of everyone on BookTok who has heard about this book and or read it since it's being released. Is this book dystopian? In my opinion, no. I don't think that this book should be marketed as dystopian any more than something like ACOTAR or Throne of Glass should be. I think this book could be marketed as fantasy. There's no reason this couldn't be marketed as romantasy, but to call it dystopian, I feel like is doing a big disservice to the book, and I feel like that's a big reason people came right out of the gate swinging about not liking it, is because it feels very, very mislabeled. I feel that what makes a dystopian book dystopian and not just fantasy is that dystopian books are primarily a political plot with sometimes a subplot of romance. When you look at things like Hunger Games or Divergent, those books and movies are dystopian. They are not romance books, they are not romance movies. They are dystopian. The whole plot of them is taking down a government that is destroying people, and there is a subplot of romance somewhere throughout there because it's about humans and finding the good and the bad and whatever. So there's romance in it, but it is not primarily a romance story, and I feel like that is the issue with this. This is primarily romance with the backdrop of dystopian, and I feel like you can't label that dystopian. A dystopian genre is a book that is about a governing body that is doing something wrong. This was a romance book, not a dystopian book. In my opinion, sue me, shoot me, I don't care. Barely any description of the world around them. It was kind of just mentioned that there were, like, other worlds and factions, but, like, really no detail to them. You were just kind of left to assume how the world worked because, again, it's dystopian backdrop. It's not a dystopian book. This didn't give me any more descriptors of the world than any other 300-page romantasy book currently on the market. I get that we don't like the government because they're killing the modified people, the mods of this story, which I think is a weird thing to call them, but whatever. I understand that, like, that's the driving force of what makes the government bad. My thing is no one else seems to disagree with the government. And again, with things like Hunger Games, what makes the government bad is the people don't like the Hunger Games. The only people that like the Hunger Games are the rich people that are profiting off of it. The general public does not want the Hunger Games to happen. They don't want their children killed for sport. The general public of this story also don't like the mod people. They don't like the modified people. They don't like that the government's, like, watching them to see what they're doing, but they don't care that they're killing an entire race of people. To write a story as dystopian with a bad government, it feels weird that the only people that don't like the government are, of course, the people being killed. All in all, I would not call this book dystopian. I would call it, at most, fantasy. For this to have such a prominent romance plot, I don't think that it should be marketed as dystopian. I think that does, especially in the current political era that we are in right now, anywhere in the world, it feels very weird to call a book dystopian and then not talk about the government that's making it dystopian. That just feels weird to me. And then I basically said, in general, romance in this book wasn't for me. Everything felt very, very surface level from the beginning, even to the end. I feel like there was never anything like deeply emotional that they necessarily connected on. I feel like the author using the wolf persona was kind of a crutch, her way of making up for their lack of emotional connection. Even up until the end, I did not feel it. I gave this book about 2.5 stars. Did not love it. I don't hate it and wish that it was never published. Would I recommend it to anyone? No. If you don't read this, I don't really think you're missing anything important. If I wasn't reading this book for the sake of this video, I probably would have DNF'd it before I even got halfway through. 20 minutes later, that is my review of Silver Elite. Now, we have to get into the opposing book on this kind of popular book argument war thing. Shield of Sparrows, which I have on my Kindle. I know nothing about that book either. Going into both of these kind of blind on purpose. The only thing I knew about this was the general public didn't like it, where all I know about Shield of Sparrows is the general public seems to love it. Going into that one, I have higher expectations for sure than this, so I feel like it's going to feel better, but I'm going to go into it as open-minded as I can, and not just be like, at least it's not as bad as this. I'll do the same thing, check in halfway through. I'll give you my end thoughts and feelings, and then I will give my comparison and my overall, which of these, if either of them at all, should you read. I'm gonna start Shield of Sparrows, and hopefully not want to die halfway through it, and I will see you guys probably in a few days for a midway update. Are at halfway point for Shield of Sparrows. I have thoughts, not as many as Silver Elite and not as bad, but I do have notes. Opposite of Silver Elite, where I was like, people need to come up with a different color, like every single book. An alternate bloodline is silver. Shout out to this book, they picked a new color, and they picked green, which was really cool, actually. I thought that, like, made it seem, like, poisony and gross, so I thought it was actually kind of cool. I also said shout out to fantasy hair dye. Never read about that in a book before, so I thought that that was really cool. But also, send me the link, because it seems to last forever. This girl, like, dyed her hair once, and then, like, got thrown in the ocean, and it was perfectly fine. I need that. Anywho, and I do have theory, or I guess, I don't know if confused is the right word or not, but I am thinking of the vibes of the Guardian guy. Don't trust his character, not in the sense that I think that he's like a villain or something, but I don't. He's obviously not telling the truth about things, but my theory is, if you've ever watched, this is a lore for me, show throwback. Have you ever watched fucking Winx Club, bitch? Okay, if you ever watched Winx Club, and when you meet Sky and Brandon, they're pretending to be each other, and then in the next season you find out that they're actually each other, and they were like, whoa, we were pretending to be. That's what this is giving, okay? It's giving the classic Sky Brandon switcheroo a la Winx Club. That's what this is getting, okay? Because Prince doesn't give Prince, Guardian gives Prince. And there's the whole scene, not super spoiler, where there's the marriage happening and one of them says I do for the other person. Coincidence? I think not. So yeah, I think the prince is like a decoy or something. And the guardian is who she's actually like married to. He's either has to be the actual love interest or a straight up villain, and I'm not getting villain energy. He's being mentioned way too much. She's having too much interactions with him and she thinks he's hot too much for him to not be an important character other than just like the guy that knows magic. So I then wrote, if Xavier is actually the king, I have no interest in continuing reading this book because I have zero emotional connection to his character. Don't like him. I like the magic system of this so far. Like the uniqueness of it being like magic system of animals and not just like wizards and stuff like everything else. I liked the idea with the Guardian. I like his changing eyes. I think that's a cool dynamic of them changing color and things. I think that's really cool, other than maybe like weird tattoos or something. I think that the eye thing is very interesting. And then I wrote, I have no idea where this is going, but it's a nice pace coming off of Silver Elite where I figured out what was happening in literally chapter 2. That's where I'm at so far. I'm about halfway through. We're gonna keep chugging along, and I will see you guys again at the end for my overall thoughts and feelings, and then I will talk about the two together and which one, if any, I recommend to you. So far I am liking it better than Silver Elite, but it's not like 5-star wowing me yet. So I have hope. They're not like high yet. So I don't know. I'll see you back when I'm finished and we will discuss. We are back and we are finished with Shield of Sparrows. I think I forgot to read the description like I did for Silver Elite, so I'm just gonna do that now. Pretend that I'm good at this and I did it when I was supposed to. Description for Shield of Sparrows. The gods sent mustard? Mustard! Anyways, the gods sent monsters to the 5 kingdoms to remind mortals they must kneel. I spent my life kneeling to their will and to my father's. As a princess, my only duty is to wear the crown and obey the king. I was never meant to rule, never meant to fight, and I was never supposed to be the daughter who sealed an ancient treaty with her own blood. But that changed the fateful day I stepped into my father's throne room, the day a legendary monster hunter sailed to our shores, the day a prince ruined my life. Now I'm crossing treacherous lands besides a warrior who despises me as much as I despise him, bound to a future I didn't choose and a husband I barely know. Everyone wants me to be something I'm not, a queen, a spy, a sacrifice. But what if I refuse the role chosen for me? What if I made my own rules? What if there's no power in being underestimated? What if, for the first time, I reached for it? That is the description of this book. Much more accurate than the description, in my opinion, of Silver Elite. Silver Elite, as I think I have said many times, described as dystopian, is not dystopian. But that's for later. I need to talk about my actual thoughts and feelings on Shield of Sparrows, which I will not have to rant about for 20 minutes because I did like it a lot better. I think in general, this is like a 4-star book for me. Definitely liked it way better than Silver Elite. I think what made this not a 5-star for me is I wanted a little bit more than what it gave. I feel like it left a lot of things unanswered, which is like, yeah, setting up different books and whatnot, but I feel like they maybe could have answered 1 or 2 more things than what they did. I want a lot more. Like, I feel like Odessa's character development happened in like her confidence and like her self-worth and stuff, but I don't think there was much development in her character of like, obviously she's special and has something to do with helping the world, but like it was brought up in the end kind of her finding out something about her mom, but again it was just mentioned and not really figured out. So I just wanted more for her character and actually getting a few more answers than I did. Like, I left with more questions than I did answered. Are they good questions? Yeah, but I would have loved some answers. I like her relationship with Ransom, definitely a lot more than the relationship in Silver Elite. It feels much more like emotional and real and not like teeny bopper cutie. It was a lot more like developed and less surface level. Like, I genuinely believe that they have a connection. But I did write, I think a couple months ago read, what is it called? Where is it? Quicksilver. I did write that it was giving me Quicksilver, where I wasn't a fan of his name being Ransom. I said it was the equivalent of reading Quicksilver and having to read Kingfisher every time for his name. I would have liked maybe a different name. I don't know, Ransom just wasn't my favorite name given to someone, which, like, I get that it was also, like, he also has the first name Xavier, so, but I don't know. I felt like we could have chose a different name, but if that's my biggest complaint, then I think the book is doing pretty good. I also wrote, along with like getting more answers to things, I wish there was a little bit more development with Faye's animal companion thing. The end battle scene, I would have loved to see Faye's like protect her. Like, I get that he's like a baby and whatnot, but I don't know. I thought it would have been cool to see him like a la Game of Thrones style wolves attack stuff. I don't know. For it not being 5 stars, I just wish there were some areas that had a little bit more development, but I'm not unhappy with it. So I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. Whenever a second book comes out, I will for sure read it. I definitely recommend it over Silver Elite. Brings us to overall thoughts and feelings, quote-unquote comparison, because they're different types of books, kind of. I don't know. Overall thoughts and feelings between the two. I definitely prefer Shield of Sparrows over Silver Elite tenfold. I think comparing just requirements of writing a book, Shield of Sparrows had a lot better world building and a lot better character development. I think a lot better, like, plot to their romance. If you know anything about me, I have never been spice for spice person. I like spice with plot. And Silver Elite felt a lot more like all spice, no plot. Like, there is a plot. The plot doesn't really hinder or add to, like, they were going to think that they were hot regardless of what was going on in the world. So I feel like whatever, whether it's dystopian, just fantasy, whether it's a mystery, these two were going to have the hots for each other regardless of what was going on in the outside world. So, like, I feel like the plot in the sense of their relationship really doesn't matter, even up to the end when they're parting ways to be on separate sides of the government and they haven't even talked about whether or not they're also on the same side of it. Like, it just, the plot, I feel like, really does nothing to their relationship. Shield of Sparrows is a lot more slow burn because the plot has a lot to do with their relationship. It's, I like you, but I'm married to someone else. Like, they don't kiss till almost the end of the book because she thinks he's a different person. Like, the genuinely affects their relationship. I prefer that in Shield of Sparrows a lot more than Silver Elite. I just feel like with Silver Elite trying to market it itself as dystopian, there needed to be a lot more thought and development put into the plot and the governing body. I wouldn't call like Shield of Sparrows any more dystopian than I would Silver Elite. I think that Silver Elite would have done a lot better if it was just simply marketed as fantasy. I think the dystopian of it all did it a really big disservice, and I think that's been a lot of the discourse around it, is whether or not the dystopian aspect for it was like Earth. And in my opinion, I don't think it was. In general, not to yuck anybody's yum, but after reading the two, reading Silver Elite and then going into Shield of Sparrows made Silver Elite feel like it was written by a 17-year-old. It felt like someone's first debut novel, which feels weird coming from an author that, this is a pen name, but for all accounts and purposes that we've heard is an established author. It was an okay job at dipping your toe into a new genre, but I think that Danny Francis should go away from trying to make things dystopian and just make fantasy. Obviously, this book is selling because the smut is working, so just focus on that. I don't know. I feel like I covered a lot of Silver Elite in my like 20-minute rant. I didn't have as much to rant about for Shield of Sparrows because I genuinely liked it pretty well. But yeah, if I had to recommend one of the two to you, it would certainly be Shield of Sparrows. If you don't read Silver Elite, I don't think you're missing out on anything. Like, you could Mark Notes this book, just like AI Google overview it. I feel like this book is written by AI, so probably AI could overview it for you pretty well and you wouldn't really be missing much. I guess if you want spice with no plot, go for it. If you're someone like me that genuinely enjoys reading a book because you want to learn about new worlds and stuff, I would certainly suggest Seal of Sparrows. These two coming out in similar times, it's hard for this to not feel hyped after everybody being disappointed by Silver Elite. I would certainly suggest Seal of Sparrows over Silver Elite any day. I'm glad that I don't have to read this book anymore, and I will be thinking about this until the next one comes out. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. If there's any other like books like this that you want to see me go more in depth of, or just any video ideas you guys have in general that you want to see from me, feel free to let me know. Thank you guys for being here and hanging out with me. I love and appreciate you so much. If you want to follow me anywhere, all of my stuff is down below. And yeah, I love you, and I will see you guys next week or somewhere else on the internet.